Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here, coming at you from the KnifeCenter. Welcome to episode 186 of Knife AQ, where I answer all your questions, sharp or dull. This week, we're talking about Damascus, or rather, Damasteel. Is it the same thing? Let's find out. All right, everyone, if you're new to this series, the deal is we take your questions from the comment section below this video. So before we get started, if you yourself have a question, just drop it down below and it'll be considered for a future episode. First one today comes from Jane Knox. In the old days, long ago, when I grew up, I feel like we should have a crackling fire here now. Damascus steel was better because it was hand-forged, stronger, and held a better edge than, quote, regular steel. Now everything is powdered steel or Damasteel. Is Damasteel better than any other powdered steel? On your site, some knives are Damascus. Does that mean forged from different bar stock steels? Or is Damascus used interchangeably with Damasteel? Thanks for any comment or feedback. All right, so to tell the story of Damasteel, we'll have to thread our way to there a little bit. But describing any steel or any Damascus steel as better than XYZ, whatever the case may be. There's going to be a lot of alphabet soup in this section right here.
And weeds.
And the weeds, of course. To determine the performance of any Damascus type steel or pattern forged, pattern welded steel, you have to look at the base metals. And in a bygone age where, the modern powder metallurgy movement had not kind of taken off, yeah, you could, when you're talking about hand-forged knives especially, Damascus steel products were typically made by expert blacksmiths, expert knife smiths specifically, and as such, probably outclassed a lot of the stuff you could buy off the shelf. But in any case, whether it's Damascus or Damasteel, because they are indeed different, you got to look at the base materials. So when we talk about Damasteel, Damasteel is actually a company, not just a steel type. And in fact, they make two steels in particular that are primarily, they make more than that, but the two steels they make that are primarily used in knife blades, one of them is not a Damascus steel, and that would be RWL 34, as we see here on this Jerry Moen knife. This is is this just called the front flipper? Oops. So this blade steel, and I promise we're going to get to Damasteel, the steel, to the Damascus version here. But let's talk about RWL 34 a little bit here first. The name of this knife is quite interesting, and it's a really conscientious nod to the legendary knife maker Bob Loveless, R.W. Loveless, RWL 34. And the story goes, if some Loveless historians out there, if I get this wrong, let me know in the comments, but as I've always understood it, Bob Loveless was a big fan of 154 CM, American-made steel made by Crucible, not a powder metal. Was a big fan of that for his stainless knives, the drop forged or the drop point hunter, all those famous knives of his. When it got hard to procure said steel, he actually went to Japan. What's the forge there? Is it Takefu? I'm not sure. I should remember this part. But he basically was responsible for the steel ATS 34 getting a big boost. And ATS 34 is Japanese made, but it's 154 CM. It's the same formula as 154 CM. RWL 34 is a powder metal version of ATS 34. So edge retention should be about the same unless they're able to heat treat the steel a little bit harder, but it is a lot tougher as well. And that RWL 34 is a Damasteel steel that is not a Damascus-like product right there. Talking about the alphabet soup, like we mentioned, CPM 154, which is the powder metal version of 154 CM, is basically RWL 34. RWL 34 is the primary performance metal that you will find in Damasteel's Damascus product, which it's kind of like Kleenex or Xerox. When we say Damasteel in terms of knife blade steel, we're typically not referring to RWL34. When we say Damasteel, we're referring to this, which is DS93X or DS93X or Damasteel. You can get away with that. This right here is a Sharp by Design Aegis. This is one of the front flipper Apex. Blah, blah, blah. It's about $525. It comes with a Damasteel blade. So remember back at the beginning, way back at the beginning of this segment, when I talked about evaluating the performance based on the base metals, you can essentially, round up to CPM 154 or RWL 34 in your consideration of where this steel sits. So does that mean it performs, what were the words you used? Is Damasteel better than any other powdered steel? Discounting for a moment the fact that it's hard to ever say there's any one best steel, because it all depends on what your intended use is. There are steels that are tougher than Damasteel. There are steels that hold an edge longer than Damasteel. Steels that are more corrosion resistant as well. Is this a high performing blade steel? Absolutely. But perspective and keeping things in the realm of what it actually is, as opposed to being removed from the kind of the myth of the stronger Damascus steel just because it is Damascus. This is stronger than a lot of steels out there, but it doesn't mean it's stronger than everything just because of what it is, if that makes sense. Yes? No? Maybe so.
Weeds.
All right. Hope that helps. Well, now we're going to get to our measured once, cut twice segment, where we take a second slice at a previously answered question. There were a lot of good comments from last week's episode where was it Graham Blackhall loved his buck canoe, but wanted something with better edge retention than the 420J2 that blade or that knife came with, but wanted the hollow ground blade specifically. And living in the UK, it had to be 3-inch blade, no longer than that, and non-locking. I showed some, I think, pretty compelling options, but some of you brought up a good point, such as Technotrog 1 here. I thought Case made a canoe. Yes, indeed they do. This is a Case Knives canoe. And while this is not necessarily a high performance blade steel, their stainless steel option right here, which they call true sharp stainless, which has actually varied a little bit over the years in terms of what it actually is. It is going to be a step up from the 420J2. So worth a mention for sure. The smooth gray bone here looks nice. You've got that excellent hollow grind. Let me just confirm, this looks like it's under 3 inches. Oh yeah, I mean, it's just barely over 2.5, right? Yep. So this could certainly fit the bill. But if our gentleman was looking for really high performance, one of those other options. A lot of folks mentioned the Cold Steel Lucky, the Lucky 2, which we didn't have one on the shelf to show today. That is a flat ground knife, not hollow ground, but the reason he likes the hollow ground is the ease of sharpening. That Lucky has a really thin blade to start with, so it's gonna be really easy to sharpen as well, I would say, in terms of the metal you're interfacing with. So yeah, bunch of good ones. Thank you all for those. Well, now we're coming to maybe a new segment, which, I don't know, we could call like the weekly salt spray or the Saturday seasoning. Saturday seasoning is not bad.
And now I have to make another graphic.
Not yet. Hold off on that just yet. Thomas has no idea what I'm about to talk about. But I mentioned, maybe it was last week, maybe the week before, when some of these questions in this FAQ video series are not very frequently asked. But probably the most frequently asked question has to do with someone who wants stainlessness, like the most stainless thing possible. I mean, like nearly every week there's at least a new comment on the YouTube channel from someone who wants something the most stainless, and it's hard to not default to the Spyderco Salt series, one of the knives in that series. So this is maybe tongue-in-cheek, but here we go. Jameson Chupp says, "Hey DCA and Thomas, I work in lawn spraying and shrub trimming business. I need a decent knife with washers in the pivot. I also live in Florida, so I need something that's going to be as stainless as I can get with my budget of around $250. I mean, it's hard to not recommend the Salt series. And good enough for you, that series tops out at about $244 and some change with knives like the Caribbean right here, which I think would be a good option. 3.7-inch blade, LC200N steel. I like the sheep's foot style blade for this particular gentleman, for this particular industry. I think that would be advantageous. Washers in the pivot. All the internals of the knife are as stainless as possible as well. It's not just the blade, and that's why it's hard to recommend any other answer, because other knives may use super stainless blade steels, but have the internals been tested to the same degree of stainlessness? In Spyderco's case, we can say yes. So for your Saturday seasoning for today, the Caribbean, sir, would be a very good option. I do think so indeed.
I'm not a chemist, but I gotta imagine the fertilizers this guy works with might affect it too.
All the more reason to want things that are as little reactive as possible, or as least reactive as possible, I would say. Right?
That's my only contribution right now.
Good. Thank you for that. Well, now we come to our next segment, a lot of segments today, which is Damyr's Buried Treasure, where we are going through the alphabet and picking out a brand that we have not shown on the channel before. And today we're on the letter E, and we're going with Extrema Ratio. Now we have technically shown one of their knives on the channel before, but it was in one short only. It's never appeared in like a YouTube long standard length video.
Yeah, I should watch all our shorts to find it.
Scavenger hunt. So we have Extrema Ratio. And this is a knife, this honestly kind of is a bit of an oversight that this has never been on the channel. And a few folks have mentioned it and kind of called us out for it. And that's the Rayo, the heavy duty folding knife that put this brand on the map, at least as far as I'm concerned. It comes in at about 380 bucks, and it comes in this monster sheath right here. We'll get to all that in a minute.
It's a backpack.
At least a fanny pack, anyway. Let's get to the knife. And yes, I know it looks like there's a fixed blade sheath attached to the back of this. We'll get to that in a minute. Here is the knife. Actually, let me unsnap that. No, that's fine. Well, before we get to the knife, it does come with a nice diamond sharpener right there, which you can see. It's with the angle suggestion there on the back. And here's the knife. The thing is, this is a tactical knife, or heavy-duty folding knife. It's got tactical vibes. It's not exactly a fast or a quickly accessible knife. Because, as you can see,
It's a knife for ambushes.
There you go. For lying in wait, perhaps. So it takes a little bit to get out of the sheath, and you've also got this locking pin to contend with. And that's what kind of gives it its, its strength, or its reputation for being rock solid. There you go. So that unscrews. It's a two-hand opening knife as well. It's not fast deploying, but this thing is a bit of a monster for sure. 4.5-inch blade, Tonto or drop point profiles available. Technically, since this is sharpened here on the reverse side, should we call this a reverse Tonto, Thomas?
It's a double Tanto.
It's a double Tonto, so fine, whatever you want to call it. Aluminum handles, plenty there to grab a hold of, plenty of length, even if you've got bulky gloves on. For me and my slightly larger than average hands, which is a large or extra large glove size, depending on the company making the glove, I would still have plenty of room in there. Even without utilizing that extra locking pin, you do have an actual lock here, which you can see. Operates similarly to a crossbar lock, but you push up instead of back in. It's not quite a crossbar, I don't think. Actually, it does look like a crossbar. Interesting. Maybe I should have shown this before and actually learned something about it. Super beefy, super tough, super confidence inspiring. You can throw that pin back in if you want in the open position to get a little extra peace of mind, extra durability. Thing I like to do is, since this is an elastic shot cord, it can kind of get in the way a little bit when you're screwing it in. If you kind of preload it, I'm going to go counterclockwise here a few turns. You can almost screw itself in, which is fun. It might need a little. Oh, shoot. I did this earlier, I promise. There we go. It's like spring-loaded, ready to go. And there you go. You got a little extra retention from that shot cord as well. Now, the rest of that sheath, let's clip this shut, is designed so that you can carry this in the sheath without folding it. That helps with the access issue. If you have it ready to go, you can throw it in the back there, and you've got this retention snap with 2 snaps, but you'll see 3 right here. That is so you can engage 2 of those snaps no matter which way you're throwing this knife in the sheath. If you're throwing it in left-hand carry, you can then snap it on those two bits right there as well. So there you go. That is Damyr's buried treasure for today, Extrema Ratio with the RAW. Check it out and the other Extrema Ratio stuff at the link below if you're interested. Well, now we come to our lightning round for today, and it's over. Lightningest of lightning rounds you ever did see.
That was easy.
No lightning round for today. Probably be back next week. Now we come to our final question of the day, which is, of course, our most seriousest question of the day, which comes from Damyr. Again, a pretty serious philosophical question. When I was a kid, Spider-Man was my favorite superhero. Now I know he doesn't wear a knife, but if he would have one, which would it be? So it can't be a Spyderco because that's too obvious, quite honestly. But let's think about this for a minute. Spider-Man lives in New York City, where until recently the knife restrictions there were more onerous than they are now. They're still not perfect, but they're much better than they were. But one of the things, the peculiarities about carrying a knife in New York City is that it must be completely concealed. It can't print from underneath your clothing, and you can't even see a pocket clip. But that can't print, that's going to be tough.
In that suit?
In that spandex? I mean, come on, what are we going to do here? How do we help the old webhead out today? Like I said, can't be a Spyderco. I was thinking maybe something like the CRKT tailbone with its flexible handle, but even that, it's got a bulky sheath. Maybe a strategically located, strategically placed safety razor blade? That's all I can think of, really.
Sinclair credit card knife.
But where does it go?
In his wallet.
But won't that show? I don't think he has.
Wallet shows.
I don't think he carries. I've never seen a wallet, bulging from his spandex before.
I've never seen him pay for anything.
We're maybe onto something here. Call the tip line. I don't know, folks. You got to help me out on this one. All I can think of is a safety razor blade, placed strategically. So it's. Don't try this at home. You're not Spider-Man. You're gonna.
What if it's hidden in his boot?
I was thinking about that because I enjoyed Spider-Man very much when I was a kid too. Does he actually wear boots, or are they just part of the suit? Like, is there a boot you can cuff? You could stick something inside the cuff. That's why I thought about a boot style knife, but I couldn't get there.
It would interfere with the sticking too.
That's the thing. Are these questions that have been answered and I've just missed it in my my Spider-Man following?
I think we're just the wrong kind of nerds here.
Spider-Man was my favorite superhero as a kid too, so I feel like I've let the audience down. What can I say? Help me out, comment section. What's the knife for the webhead? Throw it down below. Anyway, keep your questions coming down below as well. Let me know if you had some alternate answers or corrections for things I've brought up today. And if you want to get your hands on any of these knives, check out the links in the description to take you to KnifeCenter.com. While you're over there, don't forget about our long-running Knife Rewards program, because the least thing we can do when you buy one of our knives today is give you some free money to spend on your next one. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center, and we're signing off. Oh, that's Thomas behind the camera, and we're signing off. Sorry, man. See you next time.
Cameraman.